Okay, so let's see. I need to just move so I can see my slides. Okay. So, thank you so much for coming. My name is Sarah Meyer. I'm from Geneva, New York. I graduated from the Ontario County Cornell Cooperative Extension Master Gardener program in 2019.
17.
17. Susie remembers. Thank you, Susie.
Because we were in the same class.
Yes, I know. We say that every time, and I don't know why I have 19 in my head, but 2017. And as a commitment, as when you become a master gardener, there's a volunteer commitment. And so these webinars are one way in which our master gardeners give presentations and help educate the public. There's other services that we do, but I want to thank everyone for coming tonight. Uh, Tonight's program is unique. I think it might be one of a kind or first of its kind offered in the Master Gardener webinar series, or maybe ever. Um, I am I would say a former avid gardener. I'm more, when I started, I was doing a lot of gardening, but that's what got me into becoming certified. And then I am also a beekeeper. So, and I run a business. It's called Workers Ransom Honey. And so over time, I have tried tug of war between my love of beekeeping and my love of gardening. But across all of those loves is food and drink. And so I am just fascinated with ways in which I can share what I enjoy with others, but also learn as I go. So I am not, honestly, I'm not a big drinker even, but I am going to talk about cocktails, but also non-alcoholic mocktails tonight. And it's really in an effort to challenge me to learn something I didn't know or know much about, but then also, as I said, share and kind of build our passion around the garden and what we can use in our food and beverage for of our harvest. So um, this suited my curiosities, but it's also been a challenge for me, and I enjoy that. So that's why I'm doing this, and maybe ask for a little bit of grace if I am referring to my notes, because this is somewhat fresh information for me and out of my typical subject matter. So I'm going to try to advance slides and hopefully, well, that button didn't work. Let me try my mouse. Okay, going to be this. Okay. So I've shared a little bit about me. This presentation will go for about an hour, and Susie's gonna prod me or give me a sign if I start going too far over, because I wasn't sure how to estimate some of the mixing of the drinks and the sharing here of information. But we will go over just an intro to mixology. In the description, I referred to the golden ratio. There's a couple golden ratios out there, and if anything, it's somewhat of a pun. There is a golden ratio in mixology, but also in gardening. The golden ratio is a key measuring proportions for designing gardens, but also it may be referred to in composting as a golden ratio of NPK or something like that when you're working with nourishing your soils and such. But we'll go over the golden ratio and how it applies to mocktails as well as cocktails. I figured since this is a gardening master gardener presentation, I should probably go talk a little bit about the garden itself and what grows in a cocktail garden. But then I'm going to shift gears and get more into the actual beverages and the history, a little bit of history behind uh, the world of cocktails and mixology. And then we're going to prepare some drinks. So as you can see, I'm in my kitchen. This is not my typical setup to give a presentation, so I appreciate your patience with that. I'm gonna be doing some mixing, but we're gonna go over a couple different recipes after I go through a little bit about mixology and the history a bit. Okay, so the description of my presentation tonight is on the slide, and I just want to emphasize that I will be going over different garden harvest ingredients that are used in garnishing many of the cocktails that I'll provide recipes for. Um, in terms of the supplies, I am not a bartender. Like I said, I usually drink IPA beers. That's my go-to. So cocktails is a whole new world. That's what caused a lot of this learning for me. So I do not have a shaker set. I do not have shot glasses in my house. I am doing this as hopefully maybe you are, like never done it before, but we can figure it out with what we have. I didn't want to spend money and Amazon shipping to enjoy these beverages tonight with you. So you'll see me using ball jars. I have teaspoon measuring. I bought these 2-ounce cups from the dollar store. They come in a set. We're admitting someone here. I got a strainer from the dollar store. Very easy, $1.25 because nothing's a dollar at the dollar store. I'm going to use a wooden spoon for muddling some of the ingredients. Of course, the lime needs some peeling and a knife for cutting. And we're going to actually drink out of, I wish you guys were here so I could share these beverages, but I'm going to pour and drink into or out of more ball jars. But of course, if you have fancy cocktail drink or glasses, more power to you, but I don't. So these are the basics, and hopefully this is all applicable for you guys as you're gonna listen along here. So mixology is defined as the art of studying and preparing serving mixed drinks. It is considered a craft, and many people explore mixology. There's a ton of cookbooks out there. There's a ton of websites available for ingredients, but certainly folks, somewhat like a sommelier of wine, there are mixologists that specialize in mixing drinks. And the Webster Dictionary that dates back to 1948 defined it as the skill of preparing mixed drinks. And so it doesn't necessarily mean alcoholic drinks. So we're going to get into mocktails and cocktails that I've mentioned already. Some common terms that I won't necessarily use, but might be good for you to have if you want to dig deeper in learning about these beverages is simple syrup. And I'm going to talk to you and share with you how to go about using simple syrups in your beverages. These are the basics. So you kind of have to know this to mix a drink. There's a lot more to know, but just hitting the surface here. Liqueur is another flavor enhancer for drinks that mix hard alcohol with some sort of added sugar. Bitters is another flavor enhancer. Ends up being more of a infused spice or fruity, or even some I've made bitters out of flower heads before, or blossoms, but bitters can use as a flavor enhancer. Muddling, I mentioned using my spoon to muddle, but you're basically crushing and pressing sometimes fruits or herbs, herbaceous plant matter to infuse into your drinks. Of course, the lemon, lime, and orange twist oftentimes is using just a slice or peel of the zest. And then sour mix is very commonly used in recipes, and it's a combination of simple syrup with lemon and lime juice. Of course, you can buy these things already pre-made and pre-mixed, but I always like making my own. So just a little bit into what liquors are really the basic go-to flavor profiles that you can use to enhance your cocktail. And I'll talk about how to build the cocktail in a minute, but in terms of liquor or distilled spirits in this case, there are typically 7 liquors that are the most common and types of them within. So for example, whiskey, bourbon is a type of whiskey. Again, I'm going to go into some of these details, but what I wanted to highlight here is the difference in what is distilled. So whiskey is made from grains. Rum, sugarcane, brandy is from fruit, distilled and fermented fruits. Mezcal and tequila are both distilled from blue agave or agave. And vodka, it can be distilled from many different things, but typically has zero flavor or coloration and 95% ABV. And that's alcohol. I'm forgetting the B, but it's the percent alcohol. And then gin is oftentimes from fermented juniper. And liqueur I mentioned earlier under the common terms, but it's a distilled liquor with some sort of flavored sweetener. Oh, I keep wanting to hit my space bar. Okay, so the base liquors I just talked about, and I know this is a lot of words and a lot of color, and that's pretty much all I want to kind of highlight on this slide. It's a lot of information that I don't expect you to kind of register and remember right now, but I color coded it with the flavor map or flavor wheel to help you kind of profile these distilled spirits on your own. They're listed here: brandy, rum, gin, whiskey, vodka, and tequila, just like the last slide. But in this case, you can kind of see how their flavors are, depending on how they're aged and what they are used as their base of what's distilled or fermented, develops a flavor profile. And this flavor map on the right, I've used a flavor map when tasting honey. So flavor maps are used oftentimes in describing or in tastings of food and drink. Wine tastings as well can kind of have different notes of when you read descriptions of Finger Lakes wine. But what I thought was interesting, once I started color coding the words here, I realized like, wow, tequila can be all over the flavor map. It's not just, always running on the red with fruity and floral. There are some that are oaky, spicy, and have caramel and vanilla notes. Same with gin. I love gin. I love a gin tonic. If I did have a mixed drink, they're usually at weddings, which are rare these days for me. But gin and tonic would be one of my go-to beverages. And it's typically distilled from juniper, as I said before, but the flavor profile can go from that piney flavor developed from the juniper all the way into the more fruity with the citrus peel flavor. So my point here is each of these liquors can really vary on the flavor map, and oftentimes those flavors are developing due to age of the distilled liquor or distilled spirit. So I keep wanting to hit
Can
my,
everybody see the slide?
yes, everybody's doing okay?
Because I can see parts of it, but I can't see the whole slide. And it may just be me, but I wanted to double check.
What part are it's getting cut off?
Yeah.
It like all on the top?
Oh,
Oh, someone chatted.
someone says it's all good, so it's probably me. Don't
Okay.
worry about it
Oh,
then.
okay, thanks though for
Everybody
letting
can
me.
see the whole thing. I just wanted to check.
Okay, okay, thanks, Susie.
Thank
I
you.
can give you a one-on-one later.
It's okay.
Okay, okay.
I just didn't want people to be cut off.
Yeah, I didn't either, so thanks for double checking. Okay, so common mocktail ingredients. Again, I'm gonna try to like counter with the cocktails with the mocktail ingredients. So in place of adding some sort of distilled spirit to your cocktail, you're likely going to have some sort of ratio between sweet and sour, with a dash of salty or bitter, as a 1-to-1. So oftentimes the mocktail ingredients are using, juices and sodas, carbonated sparkling water. This is Spindrift No Hito is an item I'm going to use in a drink later. Grenadine is actually pomegranate juice reduced with added sugar. I didn't know that, so I thought that was interesting. I've heard of grenadine, but ginger beer has become more common in terms of choices on the supermarket shelves. Fresh herbs, fresh fruit, and a shrub. And I'm going to talk a little bit later about what a shrub is, but it actually involves a mixture of fruit, fruit juices, sugar or simple syrup, and apple cider vinegar or some sort of vinegar. So keep in mind when I go over the alcohol inclusive drinks, those that are seeking mocktails, think back to these common ingredients and maybe try to find substitutes or same flavor profiles that you could get out of adapting a cocktail for a mocktail. Okay, so when you are forming a cocktail or mocktail, in the larger image here is the 2 part spirit, 1 part sweet, and 1 part sour. That is kind of like the well-known golden ratio for cocktails. And then the golden ratio, although not necessarily always stated as the golden ratio for mocktails, would be 4 parts base, like a club soda or an iced tea, or maybe even that shrub or some sort of juice that I mentioned, to go with 1 part sour and 1/2 part sweet. So you play a little bit around with the sweetness in both cases. However you prefer your beverages, that I would say the sweet is most adjustable and more to your liking. Okay, hopefully I covered that. Okay, so today I have, just like the picture, I have made a honey simple syrup. I'm a beekeeper, so I have honey and I always like to use it. This is a 1-to-1 ratio. I actually had an empty honey jar. This is my brand, but I cleaned the jar and added some water to it and put it in here. So that's a 1-to-1. Warm water will dissolve and not damage the honey, although you're putting honey in with alcohol at times that might damage the quality, but the health benefits some may retain with a cocktail. But in the mocktail, adding honey simple syrup is a great option for the health benefits. Just don't use too hot of water. On the right-hand side is more of a traditional simple syrup, and it's a 1-to-1 sugar water ratio, but there is an ability to infuse simple syrups with herbs. So I will provide these slides because I'm using it, a lot of reference to recipes and specific ingredients and preparations. But just so you know, a simple syrup is 50/50 water to sugar dissolved and sometimes infused with an herb or flavor or spice. Most of the recipes today that I'm going to refer to use some sort of simple syrup. But today I'm using the honey in the recipes I'm going to use. Okay, so here's the gardening part. I don't plant right now. I've planted a lot of these herbs, but never thought of it as a cocktail garden because one is I don't plant all of them and I don't use them necessarily for cocktails because I don't make too many mixed drinks. But if I was going to get into garden hosting, I think this is a great idea. This is a 2 foot by 4 foot a bed. If it's in the ground or raised like the image, that would be great. They're 1 foot by 1 foot square. And we have rosemary here. Can you see my mouse moving?
Yep.
Okay, so here's some rosemary, basil, lemon verbena, lavender. We've got Thai basil, mint. Oh, there's the lavender. Sorry. Lavender. This is the strawberries. I think these are a special strawberry, but I didn't write down the specific type. But these are the very common herbs that and flowers and some fruit that are used in cocktails that I came across. So although not all of them would be appropriate necessarily as a companion plant to others, you'll have to like look into that specifically. I know you can even get into some vegetables or leafy greens in some of these drinks too. I'm going to go over a drink that uses the arugula, which I thought was pretty unique. If there's any questions, don't forget to holler out. I'm gonna probably pick up my pace here because I don't want to fall behind. So garnish is something too that you can consider, even if you're making just a simple gin and tonic and there's no infused herbal simple syrup or any crushed fruit or and such in the actual cocktail itself. Garnishing your cocktail with a plant is just makes it so pretty. And I included some pictures here of using the nasturtium. This is snapdragon. These are all edible, but as you probably hopefully know, before you consume something, make sure you're identifying it properly. I've listed a bunch of edible flowers on the right-hand side of the slide, and I can cite my source as to identifying those, but I just thought it was impressive how many edible flowers are likely in at least having a couple of those in your garden at home. Um, More on the herbs with basil. Lilac is the purple, and borage has a really great flavor. When you bite into this pretty flower, it tastes like cucumbers. And then marigolds. I have a long history of growing marigolds, and I really enjoy them. And you can use just the petal or the entire blossom. They're related to the calendula plant and can be used in the same way. But yeah, an impressive list of flower garnishes that I thought would be helpful to you guys. Okay, so getting into a little bit of history, I got to pick up my pace. I'm just excited to get into these details that I've found for you guys. But it really started with ice, and ice became actually available to homes in the Northeast specifically, be in the 1900, 18 and 1900s. And so between 1800 and 1920, ice harvesting became like an automatic thing. Anyone that was living near fresh water was likely harvesting ice and making money doing it. They would harvest it with horse and sled and sell it for refrigeration in restaurants, in different situations, supermarkets and things like that to keep things cool. But truly, probably the cocktail itself, as in terms of the word, was developed in 1890 in terms of what they called it. But I'll talk a little bit about how it was in actually before 1700 and 1690 was probably the first creation or use of not necessarily the term, but the actual combination of the golden ratio to make a cocktail was in 1690. But carbonation was established in 1776. The first ice making machine was created by John Gorey in 1844. And then distillation was established in 1826. And I'm sure you're familiar with the history that has come about since, but I'm going to share a little bit of the story along the way. There were speakeasies, trying to hide the forbidden content from police, but also the cocktail renaissance in more recent decades as to like just exploring mixology and being more creative, garden to glass with unique ingredients and just really expressive of creative content and flavor profiles and such. I wanted to highlight the bitters. Richard Sawton in the late 1600s, it was 1690, he created what he called the Stoughton bitters. And it was a product that he developed in London. It was called the Elixir Magnum Stomachicum. And it was a bitter to be mixed with wine or ale or beer. To mix together with a little bit of sweetness, and it was a medicinal herbal mixture, which back then they called a pearl. But essentially, in 1690, we probably would have called it a cocktail, but that term didn't exist back then. But yeah, that was probably the first use of an actual cocktail, but more on the medicinal side. And then, of course, we've turned it into more of a social use. Let's see. And then I looked into the garden party because I thought for sure garden parties would have had cocktails served at them as they do these days. But come to find out, the cocktail or the garden party term or event originated likely in the late 17th century in France. And they held parties more for mixing and mingling and letting people know who's single and available. But also they, like in Versailles, they designed their gardens specifically for accommodating these celebrations. And there's a number of different artwork that express the garden party. Um, the artist here, Jan Steen, he was actually known to be a really heavy drinker, and most of his art and art pieces of work have libations in them. People are in brothels or bars, and a lot of his artwork is inclusive of the beverage, intoxicating beverages, which I thought was kind of funny, but he did picture the garden party here. And then more recently, at Buckingham Palace, Queen Victoria in the 1860s, all the way to current day, Queen Elizabeth has hosted her garden parties over history, and more currently, they do not serve cocktails. I thought they would have, but it is actually a dry event. 8,000 people come. It's open to the public, and it's more to recognize and reward public service in current days. In the past, it was more of a status, and aristocrats would gather and socialize. Debutantes is how the term was used. So I want to get into making beverages. I'm excited for this. So these are a couple recipes I've never made before, but I will be today and letting you know what I think. Um, the first drink I'm going to prepare is the raspberry bourbon smash. And bear with me because, okay, it's just about 8, so we have about a half hour. And I'm gonna work through this. And again, any questions before I transition into like my active mode? Anybody? I like engagement. Okay. All right, you guys are all good. All right. So, this raspberry bourbon smash is, let's see, bourbon is a type of whiskey. So you can substitute different whiskeys for the bourbon if you don't have bourbon, but I happen to have this in I think I got this from my parents' liquor cabinet and never opened it. But yeah, we're gonna open this and we'll have the bourbon.
Are you going, Sarah, are you going? There's a question. Do we need to take notes or are you going to send out the recipes?
I'm going to share my PowerPoint presentation, and on each slide are the recipes. So you will get the recipes. Yeah, but yeah,
So Nancy will send them out.
I'm going to ask her to do that. Yeah. For those that registered, we have your email addresses. If you didn't formally register for the event with an email address, maybe pop it in the chat and we'll have that. Make sure you get a copy. Okay, so this is the bourbon. And I fresh picked these raspberries from my raspberry bushes. They're fall fruiting, and they also summer fruit, which I'm very fortunate for having. So this is about a quarter cup. I'm putting it again in my ball jar. Hopefully, if you can't see or hear me, let me know. Just holler. Um, oh, here's it does say fresh lime juice, but I like this product. I love lime, and I can go through a bottle of this, and I find it one, it is USDA organic, and it lasts a long time, and I find it a better value than purchasing limes unless you need the zest for that purpose. But this calls for a teaspoon, and I've shaken it. So we're putting that in there. And then I wish I had grown mint, and I wish it would be like prime season for harvesting it, but I did have to buy mint at Wegmans, and this little thing was $2.50. So I highly encourage you to grow mint um, because I find that to be really kind of, well, everything's kind of pricey, but I find that to be a lot for this little bit of mint. But I'm gonna just toss in some of the leaves here. They wilted. I bought this last night and it's kind of wilted down, but we're gonna add a little bit of mint to this drink. Put it back in the jar. Let's see. Oh, I didn't do my bourbon. The bourbon goes in here too, right?
Yep.
I'll muddle the raspberries and mint together. I gotta muddle. And I'm really just kind of beating these up with my wooden spoon. I'm just kind of breaking up the fruit and getting that mint kind of bruised up a little bit to release its oils and fragrance to the drink itself. Oh, sorry. So the consistency is like jam. Okay. And I gotta move you guys out of my way. You're over here. Okay. And then I already added the lime. I'm not even reading the instructions. And then the bourbon. It said 1.5. And these are these 2-ounce cups. They're just like they come with little lids at the dollar store. This is 2 ounces, so I'm gonna just go just short of 2 ounces for 1.5. And I'm pouring that in there. Okay, cool. This is fun. Okay, mix together with a spoon. Add ice. Mix together one last time. Why do it doesn't have you don't drain it or you don't it says you don't really need to strain it, but I kind of feel like it would be nice. But I suppose once I make my drink and top it with the club soda or seltzer, the flavors will I should say the solids will probably I'm gonna splash on my white dress or white shirt. Don't want to do that. Okay. Okay, we have that. Okay. We're gonna add some ice. And my ice is already melting, so just trying to get some cubes. Okay. I had a feeling that was gonna happen. And let's see, my club soda seltzer. I have tonight this it was almost sold out, so I guess it's a popular flavor profile, but Polar Seltzer has sliced pear cider. And I thought that might sound seasonal. So this is gonna be my club soda. I also have plain club soda, but I feel like the seltzer that I have is more fun. Hopefully it doesn't explode on me. I'm gonna top it. Oh, it's so pretty, guys. Okay, okay. Does it look like the picture?
Yeah,
And I
it
have
does.
a mint sprig. I'm gonna top it a little bit. I have no idea how, like, if that's strong or not, but again, I've never made this drink myself or tasted it, so um I
It
have
looks very pretty.
yeah, I mean that's what matters, right? And I'm gonna do a little stir just to make sure I got it all. I suppose you could strain that if you wanted to, but yeah, it's kind of chunky.
People
But
say it looks delicious.
not horrible, guys. All right, see you later. I'm going to nap. Just kidding. I don't know if I'm a fan of bourbon, but that is a tasty drink. Okay. Are there any questions about the raspberry bourbon smash? You can, of course, buy berries this time of year, but I happen to have a raspberry bush that is fruiting. This might also be a great drink for a frozen and then thawed fruit. So you can buy frozen raspberries or maybe even substitute another berry and play with the flavors a little bit. But I think that's a very nice, simple drink and not too, you know, pricey if you have the available ingredients.
There's a question, do you think vodka could be an okay substitute?
Definitely. I say that because vodka doesn't necessarily have a flavor or shouldn't necessarily have a strong flavor, and bourbon does. So if anything, I would presume the mint and raspberry will come out even more. And vodka goes with everything. No, just kidding. But yeah, I think it would be fine. And I've made mint like with mojitos. And I think a mojito is gin. So maybe even gin could work in this case. Oh, okay. So I'm going to play around a little bit with playing of this video. This is an arugula gimlet. And a gimlet is a classic gin or vodka based drink. So you can, to answer that same question, substitute vodka in this drink. It's a gin or vodka drink sweetened with lime juice and carbonated. So it's a fairly simplified drink, and then you can play around with it by adding the simple syrup as sweetness as you would like and the arugula. But in this, I'm going to play a video so that you don't have to watch me make a drink in my kitchen here. So bear with me as okay, here we go. I'm gonna, where'd you guys go? Okay, share my screen. I just gotta move it around, share this, pop that out. Okay, does everyone see the young lady here with the gimlet? Yes? Are we good, Susie? Do you see this?
Yep, we're good.
Okay.
Love finding
Can you hear it?
for new cocktails all over, and this
Yes.
gimlet is perfect for summer and comes right from Back Bar in Somerville, Massachusetts. I love the way the arugula and the lime complement one another, bringing out the perfect blend of citrus and spice. And the addition of Rhodium Forager's gin just makes it absolutely perfect for summer. So to get started, we're going to take our cocktail shaker and we're going to go in and add 2 ounces of our Rhodium gin. You could use any gin that you have at home, but this one is just so delicious with all of the flavors. You're going to the very top so your measurements are accurate. And now we're going to take 3/4 ounces of lime juice. You can do a fresh lime, or this Italia brand is fabulous too. So squeeze that in and get right underneath 1 perfect ounce. Add that in too. And just a touch of simple syrup to offset some of the bitterness. We're going to do 1/2 ounce. Okay, once all of that is in, we're going to fill with ice about halfway. And then add in our fresh arugula. So the recipe calls for about 8 ounces, which is a cup. So I pre-measured it. Cover it up, and we're going to shake it. And you'll know it's done when the cocktail shaker is cold to the touch. You'll start to see some condensation. The greens are mixed in, which is a good sign. And we're going to strain this right into our coupe glass. You can use a mesh strainer if you want, but I like the idea of having a little extra vegetation in there. Right to the top, you can garnish with a lime wheel, or if you have some extra arugula, put in a little garnish. And that is how you make an arugula gin gimlet. Cheers.
This
Ooh.
is how to get in shape fast. The best way to burn fat.
Hold on. Okay, where's my stop share? Okay. Wait, there's too many windows. Okay, now I gotta share my slide. Share. Okay, then I gotta show this. Okay. Okay, so I don't know why her drink was not green as this photo was, but I would say it may just be how fresh the arugula is or how harsh she's shaking it or muddling it. I suppose you could probably do it more. It also would affect the flavor. Also, if you were wanting to make this gimlet into a mocktail, I would say eliminate the gin and possibly, add this like a lime sparkling soda or sparkling water. There's lime flavored, and that would enhance the lime juice and add that carbonation that makes that classic gimlet. Okay, so here is a drink I'm going to make for you guys. This is actually a mocktail. So this is a sleepy time mocktail that uses frozen cherries. So let's see. I'm gonna use this glass. So I've got my jar, ball jar. I had bought frozen cherries. I can show you what they look like. They're in the fresh picked bags at Wegmans. I think they're like $3.50 a pound, which is pretty cheap for knowing that that's not what they are per pound when they're fresh. But I bought them frozen. And sometimes I do go cherry picking and I'll, freeze local, but in this case, just know that I got these frozen. So I'm putting them into my jar with the lime juice, a half of a fresh lime juice. So I'm going to guesstimate a splash of that. I love lime, so I think too, these aren't such like rigid instructions. Half of a fresh lime, I would say, would be like a couple teaspoons. I do have limes, but pouring is so much easier, right? Okay. Then we have the Cherry Bundy tart cherry juice, but you can also substitute a pomegranate juice. But both of those are sleep aids and have some level of melatonin and magnesium for aiding in sleep. Again, this is a mocktail, so you can have this before bed or in the during the day. I'm just gonna says two, I'm using tart cherry juice. So, and it's unsweetened, 2 tablespoons. And, I did, see this for sale. I think it's actually on clearance or, discount right now at Wegmans, a larger quart jar. I just didn't want the large one for the sake of, one recipe, but certainly, tart cherry juice alone can be a nice sleep aid. Okay, and muddle. So I've got I know I could go and rinse and all that jazz, but I didn't. And I'm gonna muddle, and kind of crush up some of these, frozen cherries, which they were frozen and I put them in the refrigerator just before the talk. So they've kind of softened a little bit in the refrigerator. Okay. I'm sorry if it's hard to see, but it's lime juice and cherries smushed up into a ball jar, basically. And I'm going to add some ice. And with this recipe, they recommended using that Spinned Drift brand, sparkling water brand. I've never had this before. It's a treat, but they have different flavors. They have a straight lime, a raspberry lime, and then this is the Nojito, which is a lime and mint mix. And they happen to carry it again at Wegmans, so I got it. And this is sparkling water. So it's no sugar added. If you're concerned about spiking your sugar before bed or something, but I'm basically topping this. And it says, add a lime wedge and all that jazz to make it pretty, and I have the mint to garnish, but it's just me here and you guys. So I might stir this, but I use chopsticks a lot to stir. But this kind of looks like the picture.
Yep.
If I had a fancy glass. Oh, and it's super good. I would say it's more limey than cherry-y, but that's probably just based on you and playing with proportions. But definitely a nice, refreshing time to chill drink. And I could take a nap right now. But I'll hydrate later. Are there any questions about this first mocktail? It's a good sleepy time, relaxing drink, and it has all the good magnesium, melatonin, chill features that you might need to de-stress after work or on a weekend. Any questions? Okay,
Nope.
I'm gonna keep moving along here. This is, I liked this. These are two recipes I thought were interesting because they're using applesauce, and I would have never thought applesauce, but 'tis the season for apple picking. People are harvesting their apples. Lots of apples are for sale if you don't have an orchard or access to one. But both of these recipes use applesauce in them, which I thought was pretty unique. And um, in the case of the recipe on the right, you can see they're calling for apple bitters. So that's something you're going to have to probably shop for. And of course, it enhances the flavor. It's a flavor enhancer for drinks, bitters is. And it's part of that sour or bitter third of that ratio. But certainly I won't think it would be a deal breaker if it's one thing that you don't have, but you have everything else. So I've included that recipe, but I came across Rachel Ray advertising, and I'll show you the video in this case, but using the applesauce from the bottom of a jar. And I do this a lot with my honey. Like I never rinse honey with just to clean out the sticky jar. I'll pour coffee into it, I'll pour tea into it, or I'll just have warm water with a little bit of the rinsings of the jar. So never waste. And I just like the resourcefulness of this recipe. So I'm going to stop share and switch again to showing you this other video. Let's see. I think I need to show you this window. This guy.
And get shredded. It's not keto. It's not paleo.
Oh yeah.
Not
okay. All right. Can you see Rachel and her husband here? I'm gonna expand this.
Yep.
Here we go. Oops.
And we're going to do a whiskey sour, but an applesauce whiskey sour.
Oh, that's great for autumn.
It is perfect.
This is
for autumn.
fun for like going into Thanksgiving or the holidays. Really lovely.
So I'm going to add, normally I'd measure this out, but I'm really thirsty, so I'm just going to go crazy here.
What is that? Whiskey or bourbon?
This is rye whiskey. You
Rye
can use
whiskey.
bourbon.
Gotcha.
I
If
like
you want
rye
it on the
this one.
sweeter side,
Right,
go with
bourbon is a
bourbon.
type of
Little
whiskey.
sweeter.
So what we did is ahead of time we made cinnamon simple syrup.
Cinnamon stick,
We
equal
talked
amounts
about
of
that.
water, and sugar.
Right.
Great.
Make them melt and then cool it down. So add a little bit of that because the sour is booze, a little bit of sweet, a little bit of sour. And the sour will be fresh squeezed lemon juice.
Lovely.
So then we,
That's delightful. And you could just take a spoon of applesauce if it's not the bottom of the jar, right?
yeah, you could, we're just doing bottom of the jar because you told me to. So I'm going to put the lid right back on there and just shake it right in the jar.
That's really cool, honey. Very cool.
And then this one I'm going to, what's called double strain because of all, you don't want all that like,
You don't want
bits of
chunky bits of
applesauce.
apple. Right.
so.
I got it. You
You
want me
got
to
it?
hold?
Yeah, why don't you hold that? Make it easier.
So a fine strain in the strainer that comes with your cocktail shaker.
Exactly.
I gotcha.
Let's move over that. Then, as a garnish, we're going to do an apple slice, but I'm going to dust it with a little nutmeg,
Yum.
just to get fancy.
Honey, these are
You know,
gorgeous.
just little touches.
Nice.
Okay. So that drink I just thought was nice to share because we're going through applesauce. If you have kids and you had to spend a rough day, you can you can use the leftovers in a nice whiskey sour drink. So also Susie's going to share afterwards one of her favorite apple recovered apple recipes for her cocktail. So okay, I'm going to advance. Oh, okay. So this is not one I'm going to necessarily make, but I thought I'd talk a little bit about. I'm not sure if people are familiar with shrubs. I've made them before, but I had actually not really looked into the history of shrubs, and it kind of dates back to pre-cocktail times, and then mocktail time before mocktail times. Folks used to drink shrubs as a beverage alone. And a shrub is a mixture the ratios can change. Sometimes it's 1 to 1, berries, granulated sugar, and vinegar. And at the finish of the shrub, after the sugar is dissolved with the berries and a syrup is formed, you combine it with vinegar and then top it with a club soda. And so there's a bit of like a week to 6 months for the full development of the syrup with the vinegar. But the final result is kind of like a fruity, vinegary concentrate that you can dilute with a club soda or one of those flavored seltzer waters, or just plain seltzer, of course with ice. But this is a nice mocktail option, but it can also be used in cocktails as one of your golden ratios for the sweet, sour, and bitter. So I like shrubs just plain. You can dilute them with non-carbonated water. There's some health benefits to regulating your blood sugar, oftentimes with apple cider vinegar, but you can also play with those proportions, especially if you're sensitive to sugar. And then on the left-hand side, I included different flavor combinations if you wanted to play around with the types of fruit you use and the type of sugar and the type of vinegar combinations. And again, I'll share these slides, but I have the source to the website that I pulled this from. But shrubs have a lot of versatility and pretty easy. And once you've made them, they're good for quite some time in the fridge. And it's a nice go-to, especially for, the garden season. And I wanted to share a little bit about the history, which I found particularly interesting. The word shrub comes from the Arabic word sharbah, which means drink. And the Romans and Babylonians mixed vinegar with water oftentimes in ancient time. And then in the 17th century, when that cocktail kind of concept was evolving, and as well as that garden party art scene that garden scene that I showed in the art form, vinegar was beginning to be used to preserve fruit and berries, and it kind of resulted in this beverage drink. And then, of course, as more recently in the recent decades, as the cocktail renaissance evolved, the shrub has been used in the mocktails and more recent cocktail mixology. So it's a fun drink, and it could go either way as an ingredient or a drink on its own. So, but yeah, very versatile. And that's why I wanted to share it with you. And I thought it was pretty unique that it uses vinegar. Okay. I'm very close to time, and from here on out, I have 2 other drinks. I think it was that I have. Yes, I have 2 other drinks that I was gonna talk to you about. I could make them, but also I think just kind of talking about them, I chose them because they're unique. One in that if you're growing cucumbers and you're making pickles, this drink actually uses pickle juice. It can be versatile enough to use bread and butter pickles or dill pickles. Pickle juice is the content that kind of comes out in this beverage. It does have simple syrup, so it's not like drinking pure pickle juice. And you can garnish with dill, as the photo shows. But I thought this sounded like a really fun drink. It's unique. And if you have refrigerator pickles like I do, I have a giant jar going right now. This is definitely something that could use up some of that pickle juice at the end of a jar, just like the applesauce recipe earlier. And then the final drink I was going to talk about is actually called the English Garden. And it's the quintessential British cocktail. Although this is the actual a mocktail version for it, just a way to kind of bring out a profile similar to the cocktail. This mocktail recipe uses apple juice, lemon juice, cranberry juice, and blackberries. And more of a traditional British cocktail uses, and they don't know the origin of how long this has been around, but it's said to evoke an English countryside with the ingredients of elderflower liqueur, crisp apple, and lime notes. So I'm sharing this recipe in that this is a mocktail. It's fairly unique, but the English Garden is a very common garden cocktail, classically used by the British. And then I think that's it. I'm right on time. Are there any questions? I do want to turn it to Susie to share her one slide. Could you do that, Susie? And then maybe
Yep.
we can open it up to Susie's got this great drink. She suggested it to me early on when I was developing my slides and trying to decide on what beverages to go over. And she was drinking it earlier, the mocktail tonight. But
Yeah.
yeah, Susie, you want to share a little bit about how unique it is?
Yeah, this comes from the Cook's Illustrated magazine. And Jack and Sarah, my husband and daughter, make applesauce every fall. And their secret recipe is half Empires and half John of Golds. And we have a lot of apple scraps left over. And instead of throwing them in the compost, we made this apple syrup. The recipe in the book, in the magazine, just you could have used it out of the apple trimmings out of like a pie. And it's really easy. My recipe on the side is for a batch of applesauce trimmings, and they make a lot of applesauce. So you just place the trimmings in a pot and add some water and some sugar and some salt and a little vinegar and cook it all down and let it steep. And then um, strain it. And then what I do is I pour them into silicone mini muffin cups to make big ice cubes. And then I froze them and I bagged them individually as cubes. And we're still enjoying the ones from last season. And here's my mocktail. I took 2 cubes of the apple syrup, and I think it was lime sparkling water. The
Beautiful.
cocktail is really good. It's whiskey and sweet vermouth and the apple syrup. But if I had one of those, I'd be asleep. So that's why I'm drinking the mocktail tonight. But
Okay.
it uses something you would just throw into the compost. And the syrup it's a really pretty pink.
Yeah,
So it's
your glass is beautiful color.
yeah. So
Perfect. Thanks, Susie. I want to make sure that
sure.
got shared because it was definitely an inspiration to kind of use the scraps and like the bottom of the jar and the leftover pickle juice and enjoy the pickles, enjoy the applesauce, and enjoy the fresh apples. But of course, let's have fun with the leftover scraps. So I'm going to ask if there are any